And speaking about the negative aspect of sons being like father, which I could say childhood trauma brings. Now, imagine some people who grew up without a father, probably absentee type of father who just left them, who abandoned them. You would see that right now what they are having in their heart is a lot of hate. They themselves are likely to be absentee fathers themselves. They are likely to just impregnate a girl and not be present for their child because they saw their father do the same or they heard their father did the same. And not until they work on that hurt and pain inside of them, they are likely to just replicate the same thing that their father has done. This itself is biological, it's psychological, it's everything, and the statistics say so. Just look at what's happening around the society right now. A lot of single mothers. Some people will say it's the women who are divorcing the men, but other people will say the women they get themselves pregnant just by themselves. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to the Major Pain Podcast, the only podcast crafted to guide men like you on unraveling your uniqueness to transform the world around you. What's up? I know it has been a long time. Yes, I'm back. I know I keep saying this in every other episode that you are like, where is he always going to? Well, it's life, but trust me, everything is fine. Thanks for asking. So Father's Day just passed, and I know to the world it's done, but to me, it just began. I don't jump into the bandwagon of only wishing certain people on that day that they assign to wish them happy Father's Day, happy Mother's Day type of thing. I celebrate father, mothers, women, men, boys, girls, spouse every single day. And I feel like that's something we should incorporate in our life every day, wherein we just appreciate people for who they are all the time, not only on specific days. Well, with that being said, this episode is dedicated to the fathers out there. And the next episode, which is already pre recorded, would also be dedicated to the fathers out there because we'll be diving deeper into father son relationship. And this particular episode is titled Sins of the Father. So if you haven't heard this terminology before, I would encourage you to take time and just absorb and take all the notes and mental picture of everything that is being shared. And I want you to reflect and just ask yourself, are you currently exhibiting the sins of the fathers? Are you is it really affecting you at this point, or are you generating sins of the father for your children in the future? Sometimes we don't know how this looks or applies or how it works, but in this episode, you might get that sense of clarity. If you are a lady joining us, feel comfortable to listen as we hope women learn how to build better men through the golden nuggets we will be sharing and learning. Follow this podcast wherever you are listening. Kindly like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you know somebody that should listen to this episode or, in fact, gain access to the entire podcast, kindly share it with them. I would sincerely appreciate you for doing that. Yes, let's jump into this. Enjoy, and I look forward to seeing you, hearing from you, and also seeing you not commit the sins of the Father. Take care and stay awesome. Cheers. Have you heard about sins of the fathers? This is a term I came across sometime 2 years ago, but I have seen this pattern happen a lot of the time. If you are just hearing this for the first time, sins of the fathers derive from biblical reference, primarily in the book of Exodus, Deuteronomy, and Numbers. 2, ancestral sin, the sin or iniquity of one generation passing to another. Children often suffer from the bad things their parents do. Does that make sense to you? Does that look like something that you've seen yourself? Is that something that you've even heard about? If this is new to you, I would encourage you to pay attention to what we are going to be discussing about. Why, if you know about this, perhaps you might gain something new or you might see it from a different angle. Speaking about masculinity or just men in general growing up, I used to say a man takes time to become who he is. A man takes time to transition from being a boy to a man. And that's one beautiful gift that God has blessed us men with. There's very few men that understand the concept and how to use this time to their advantage. So let's do a little time frame or timestamp here. So when you were born, you'll almost spend, well, depending, I know there are different people listening to this podcast who come from different family or different, who have different experiences, right? But I would just say, ideally, you were born into a home, you spent a couple of years with your parents, and then teenage stage is, you become very curious about life in general. And so for me, I'm from Africa, and in my teenage years, I was in school, and then it's more like from school straight to university. Unlike in the West, or so far I've seen in Canada, that some people might end up just dropping off school for a couple of reasons, or they don't end up going straight to college. So this might change their worldview from someone who just went bam, 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 you understand? And also because we're schooling in a different part of the world, it might also still change the experience. But given, if you are a teenager, you are almost, quote unquote, surrounded by people who are learning, right? And then university comes. I think over here, high school ends at age, is it 17 or 18, thereabout? But either way, in your 20s, you are either in university or you are finishing university, depending on, like in Nigeria, I remember seeing a 16-year-old who was done from university. I was like, wait a minute, what? Like, seriously? And that's where the whole private university concept, when it started. And then later on, people started noticing that it wasn't encouraging or helping because this person hasn't really developed in their mindset, yet they are done with university. How can you approach the workforce with just a teenage type of concept? You've not really lived or seen anything. Some people might argue that, well, it's okay. I mean, what is it? Why are you hating on that? Well, I'm not, but I'm just like, the reason why we get to pass through these stages of life is not to hurt us, it's to teach us and to humble us and to give us that space to build ourselves. So if you're within the age of, say, your teen stage is a very crucial stage for you to build yourself, to drive down all the principles that your parents might have taught you within the ages of 0 to 10, honestly. And the moment you start turning into teen, you start practicalizing those principles and models that you have seen shown to you. However, you are very curious at that stage. So you begin to explore, you begin to decipher a lot of things. But if you have a good heart, there's a good chance that you wouldn't make as much fatal mistake, because they say train up a child in the way it should grow, when he's old he will not depart from it. So you would likely tilt towards the good side. And then when you notice that you are going far off the good side, you would remember that, man, something is off here, and you want to go back. And then 20 comes, 20 to 30 is another word on its own, whereby you begin to explore more about life and you begin to build and prepare yourself for the future. And then it's not about what others think about you per se, but it's what do you think about yourself at this point. The reason why I'm breaking all this down is because I want you to visually imagine your own life and ask yourself this question. When I was a teenager, what was I doing? How was I approaching life? And when I became, if you're listening to this and you're in your 20s to 30s, I still want you to imagine yourself like, what was life like? How were you approaching life? Because we are heading somewhere. 20 to 30s is a very crucial time because if you're a guy, you are transitioning from a boy to a man. If you notice in the Bible, most of the people, see David, Jesus, Joseph, they all started their ministry when they were 30s. So sometimes some guys will be like, I want to get married when I'm 30. Well, I got married when I was 30. I wouldn't say it was a coincidence. I would say it's something that I kind of prepped myself towards. But if you're a guy, you are not getting married at 30, there's nothing wrong with that. Worked on yourself, you're expected to probably have like a steady stream of income, a good job or something that can allow you to sustain a family at that age. But with the whole inflation thing right now, with the way the world has gone from what it used to be to what it is now, we understand that, yeah, like 30 can become the new 20. However, that's not an excuse to act like a child when you are 30 years old if you are a man. 30 is a big number. It's a big number wherein you are expected to have your own independent thoughts. You are expected to lead at that point. You are expected to have attributes of a father. You likely might have watched your father exhibit some of these characteristics that might have been urged in your heart, and you don't know what those things are until you might find yourself in a relationship, like a serious relationship. And this takes different shapes and forms. Sometimes we don't even know that our childhood were traumatized or we are going through trauma until we begin to have our own family or we begin to have a serious relationship and these things start popping up. And you begin to wonder, where is this coming from? I really do not know myself. I thought I was healed. I thought I got this all figured out. And you and you just realize that, wow, you have been a stranger to yourself in a long time. Well, let's dissect this and look into this. Are there things you are suffering from due to your father's mistake? Perhaps there are some situations you found yourself that it's either your father did it before and now you are paying for it, or your father did it before, you don't know, but then you are repeating same thing, same attitude, same behavior, same thought patterns, same speech, same everything. Some people don't believe that genes, our genetic system, right? They don't know how powerful it is. I don't know if you've seen some father and sons that walk alike, that talk alike. Sometimes it's genes and other times it's still nurture, like how they are being raised, right? However, there's a particular story in the Bible that repeated 3 times by 2 different people. And I'm going to read it for you. The first story can be found in Genesis chapter 12, verses 10 to 20. And it is the story of Abram and Sarah in Egypt. It says, at that time, a severe famine struck the land of Canaan, forcing Abram to go down to Egypt, where he lived as a foreigner. As he was approaching the border of Egypt, Abraham said to his wife Sarah, look, you are a very beautiful woman. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Let's kill him, then we can have her. So please tell them you are my sister. Then they will spare my life and treat me well because of their interest in you. And sure enough, when Abraham arrived in Egypt, everyone noticed Sarah's beauty. When the palace officials saw her, they sang her praises to Pharaoh, their king. and Sarah was taken into his place. Then Pharaoh gave Abram many gifts because of her: sheep, goats, cattle, male and female donkeys, male and female servants, and camels. Wow, she must be so beautiful then. But the Lord sent terrible plague upon Pharaoh and his household because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Abram's wife. I think at this point he wasn't called Abraham, right? It was Abram. So Pharaoh summoned Abram and accused him sharply. "What have you done to me?" he demanded. "Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she's my sister and allow me to take her as my wife? Now then, here's your wife. Take her and get out of here." Pharaoh ordered some of his men to escort them, and he sent Abram out of the country along with his wife and all his possessions. All right, now that is the first story. Abram now turned Abraham later on did same thing in Genesis chapter 20 verses 1 to 14. I'm sure some of you are like, really? He did it again? I thought it's just once. Even me too. I thought it was only one time he did it. I know that he did it twice. And this is Abraham deceives Abimelech. So let's go there. Genesis chapter 20. Abraham deceives Abimelech. Abraham moved south to Negev and lived there for a while between Kiddish and Shur. And then he moved to Gerar. While living there as a foreigner, Abraham introduced his wife Sarah by saying, "She is my sister." So King Abimelech of Gerar sent for Sarah and had her brought to him at his palace. But that night God came to Abimelech in a dream and told him, "You are a dead man, for that woman you have taken is already married." But Abimelech had not slept with her yet. So he said, "Lord, will you destroy an innocent nation? Didn't Abraham tell me she is my sister?" And she herself said, "Yes, he is my brother. I acted in complete innocence. My hands are clean." In the dream, God responded, "Yes, I know you are innocent. That's why I kept you from sinning against me and why I did not let you touch her. Now return the woman to her husband, and he will pray for you, for he is a prophet. Then you will live. But if you do not return her to him, you can be sure that you and all your people will die." Abimelech got up the next morning and quickly called all servants together. When he told them what had happened, his men were terrified. Then Abimelech called for Abraham. "What have you done to us? What have you done to us?" he demanded. "What crime have I committed that deserves treatment like this, making me and my kingdom guilty of this great sin? No one should ever do what you have done. Whatever possessed you to do such a thing?" Abraham replied, "I thought this was a godless place. They would want my wife and will kill me to get her. And she really is my sister, for we both have the same father but different mothers, and I married her. When God called me to leave my father's home and to travel from place to place, I told her, 'Do me a favor. Wherever we go, tell the people I am your brother.' Then Abimelech took some of his sheep, goats, cattle, and male and female servants, and he presented them to Abraham. He also returned his wife Sarah to him. Then Abimelech said, 'Look over my land and choose any place where you would like to live.' And then he said to Sarah, 'Look, I'm giving you your brother 1,000 pieces of silver in the presence of all these witnesses. This is to compensate you for any wrong I may have done to you. This will settle any claim against me, and your reputation is cleared.' And then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his female servant, so they could have children. For the Lord had caused all women to be infertile because of what happened with Abraham's wife, Sarah." Wow. There's just so much to unpack in this story. At this point, I'm like, man, Abraham be using Sarah as a bait, to get all these assets and all that. Wow, like it didn't just happen. The first time they gave him a lot of goodies, and now again they're giving him a lot of goodies. Wow. So I need to have a conversation with my wife. Hey, honey, what's up? Why don't we go to now? Where is one going to go to now? And just pull this kind of stunt, and they bless me with crazy. But all right, jokes aside, let's get to the other verse. So Abraham and Sarah, they had Isaac, their son, at an older age. So Isaac, when he was grown up, he had his wife, and in chapter 26, that's Genesis 26, verses 1 to 11, Isaac deceived Abimelech. Same Abimelech. Like this same Abimelech, his eyes is always looking out for other ladies that is not his own. So let's read. A severe famine struck the land and had happened before in Abraham's time. So Isaac moved to Gerar, where Abimelech, king of the Philistines, lived. I'm sure Abimelech must have been very old right now, like seriously old, but still, his eyes still is looking out for other women. Bad guy. The Lord appeared to Isaac and said, "Do not go down to Egypt, but do as I tell you. Live here as a foreigner in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. I hereby confirm that I will give you all this land to you and your descendants, just as I solemnly promised Abraham your father. I will cause your descendants to become as numerous as the stars of the sky, and I will give them all this land. And through your descendants, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. I will do this because Abraham listened to me and obeyed all my requirements, commands, decrees, and instructions." So you see that Isaac in this chapter is being blessed by God because of the good works his father did. His father had obeyed God. His father, that's Abraham, obeyed God's commandment, God's decrees, God's instructions. So Isaac, his son, is being blessed because of that obedience. So Isaac stayed in Gerar. When the men who lived there asked Isaac about his wife Rebekah, he said, "She is my sister." He was afraid to say, "She is my wife." He thought they would kill me to get her because she is so beautiful. Like father, like son. So Abraham had a very beautiful wife, Sarah, and Isaac got himself a very beautiful wife, Rebekah, as well. Or I think Abraham had sent his servant to go look for a beautiful wife for Isaac. And the servant sure got a fine one, man. The finest of the finest. And it was the Lord that actually pointed her out. There's just so much to unpack from the story, but let's continue reading. When the men who lived there asked Isaac about his wife Rebekah, he said, "She is my sister." He was afraid to say, "She is my wife." He thought they would kill me to get her because she is so beautiful. But sometime later, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out his window and saw Isaac caressing Rebekah. Immediately, Abimelech called for Isaac and exclaimed, "She is obviously your wife. Why did you say she is my sister?" "Because I was afraid someone would kill me to get her from me," Isaac replied. "How could you do this to us?" Abimelech explained. "One of my people might easily have taken your wife and slept with her, and you would have made us guilty of great sin." Then Abimelech issued a public proclamation. "Anyone who touches this man or his wife will be put to death." And I'm sure Abimelech too might have reasoned this thing happening back in time. Like, wait a minute, I've seen something like this happening before. Or am I just tripping? This story shows a very fine connection between Isaac and Abraham, that Isaac indeed is truly the son of Abraham. I don't know where Isaac learned how to lie from about his wife being a sister, or if Abraham told Isaac that story, we don't know, or if it's just by default Isaac just repeated that kind of thing. At this point, I don't even know if I would call that a sin. It might not necessarily be a sin per se, because they fear their life would be at risk. That's why they had to lie. But what we can take from this is, if you look at it very well, you can be like your father in a positive way, and you can be like your father in a negative way. If we look at the positive way, it could be that, say, your father was a nice person, was a very genuine and kind person. Your father was a hard worker. Your father provided for the family. You saw your father loved your mom. You saw your father treated your siblings with respect, love, care, kindness, and all those beautiful attributes that a man should have. I can assure you that how you would treat other people will be completely different. I don't know if you saw this viral video. It's a social experiment of a man trying to get into an escalator, but he couldn't. He was scared. And then a couple of people passed, and then there was this one man who had his son and his wife. The wife was carrying a baby stroller, and then this man assisted this guy who was afraid to get into the escalator. And so why this guy who was afraid entered the escalator, this man and his son, the son came and met the afraid guy, and he was like, hey, don't worry, I'm here, I'm Batman. Because he was putting on this Batman costume. But the son saw his father model a helping hand to somebody. So the son took it up from there, and we as men, as young as we are, we already have this superhero concept inside of us. We want to save someone, we want to fight for the right things. So seeing a father model those positive attributes will reinforce it into you and therefore make you want to do the same, right? And speaking about the negative aspect of sons being like father, which I can say childhood trauma brings. Now, imagine some people who grew up without a father, probably absentee type of father who just left them, who abandoned them. You would see that right now what they are having in their heart is a lot of hate. They themselves are likely to be absentee fathers themselves. They are likely to just impregnate a girl and not be present for their child because they saw their father do the same, or they heard their father did the same. And not until they work on that hurt and pain inside of them, they are likely to just replicate the same thing that their father has done. This itself is biological, it's psychological, it's everything, and the statistics say so. Just look at what's happening around the society right now. A lot of single mothers. Some people will say it's the women who are divorcing the men, but other people will say the women, they get themselves pregnant just by themselves. It's men who got them pregnant. Some people will say women are the gatekeepers of sex. Why wouldn't the woman mind who she sleeps with? But then the guys also had a choice, and he still did it. So at this time, or in this aspect, there's really no one person to blame other than everyone has their own trauma. And the on the latest aspect, I know we're speaking about sins of the father. The ladies to repeat sins of the father. They say ladies who grew up in a home with an absentee father are more likely to be at risk of teenage pregnancy. So you can see that the presence of a father has a huge role in the lives of a man and a woman, in the lives of a boy and a girl. And you might say, oh, I am older right now. I don't even need my father's presence. But that's a big lie. That's a very big lie. If you are not conscious about this, one thing many of us don't know is that as we grow older, our relationship with our fathers evolve. The conversations we have with our fathers get to change from time to time. We are no more talking about candies and toys and school fees or whatever mundane thing that you might be talking to your father about back then. Now it has evolved into things about life, some hardcore conversations that has to do with how to process emotions effectively, how to manage a home, how to lead, how to be proactive, and how to be present with the kids same time with working hard and making sure that everything is okay. So these conversations might be different per family, but as a man who is planning to say raise kids or have his own family, those conversations might be structured and attempt to have a particular way is being discussed or approached and all that. So, what we've been able to establish in this episode, or what we've been able to explore and see, is that your life is not a mistake. Your life is on a course that you can decide to follow specific pathways if you choose. And there are pathways that lead to a horrible life, and there are pathways that lead to a wholesome life, awesome life, if you choose. But you need to be aware about the things in the past so that you don't go repeating it from time to time. They say if you don't know your history, you're likely to repeat your history. And many of us are repeating the things that our father did. And a lot of those things are not good. But because we've not had the mind, the heart, the thoughts to go back in time and look and see what are the things my father did. Were they good? Were they godly? Are these things that I should be proud of? Or are these things that I need to even pray for certain type of forgiveness, or even start correcting my current attitude and behavior so that I don't follow that same pattern, so that I don't be a terrible person, so I don't bring children into this world who would repeat same terrible things. So this is a conscious effort, guys. This is not you just living for living's sake. This is you choosing to live intentionally. And in the next episode, I would be talking about the conversations that you need to be having with your father. Some of you might ask, what about me who don't have a father? How do I go about it? I've actually done my research, and I'm still doing my research about my father. And I'm getting to know a whole lot of things about him that I didn't seem to know before. But then by the time I'm adding the puzzle pieces together, and I'm beginning to say, oh, now I understand why he did this, why he did that, why he acted this way, why he was very mean at some time or at some point. Probably in the next episode, I will be sharing with you some of the things I learned, and that way you can also reflect yourself, and hopefully it will spark some ideas for you. Guys, I want you to win in life. There's a huge battle against men and against masculinity, and many men are too distracted to realize that this is a battle that really wants you to fail. You would only fail, first of all, if you don't know that it's a battle. Secondly, if you don't get to equip yourself with both the spiritual and psychological and philosophical ammunitions that you need to win this life. You shouldn't be absent of yourself. You shouldn't be a stranger to yourself. You should know yourself, and you should own yourself. And all that comes from having those conversations and choosing to know the past. All right, guys, I will leave it right here, and I'll see you in the next episode. All right, cheers.